the chairperson of the Open Educational Resources National Consultation Forum, Mr. Gitaki, the executive chairman of the Higher Education Commission, Dr. Wang, the director of UNESCO Office for Pacific States, Dr. Etain Clement, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, participants. Good morning, Nisayandra, Manaka, and Namaste to all. I'm indeed privileged and honored to be here today to deliver the opening remarks at this national consultation on open education resources. And on the outset, I must thank you all for accepting the invitation to be here. Earlier this morning, the director thanked me for coming here, but actually we should thank you all for coming and assisting us in this endeavor that we are embarking on. This national consultation is an important one for the ministry. It offers the opportunity to work with our stakeholders to improve quality education delivery here in our beloved country, Fiji. I hope that you would have noted a number of initiatives that the government has embarked since September in this area of education. Kind of demonstrates Fiji's leadership in this area, and often, as I have alluded to earlier on in my speeches, that small developing countries which face resource constraints, often government tend to allocate resources more to areas which will provide immediate and visible output. For government to allocate substantial amount of resource to a ministry like education demonstrates its real quest to build a knowledge-based society. Ladies and gentlemen, according to UNESCO, the OER, the Open Educational Resource, describes any educational resource including curriculum maps, course materials, textbooks, streaming videos, multimedia applications, podcasts, and any other materials that have been designed for use in teaching and learning that are openly available for use by educators and students without an accompanying need to pay royalties or license fees. These materials may be in printed or digital form and can be used in schools or in higher education as well as in communities where knowledge and information is to be accessed and shared. Ladies and gentlemen, the logical basis of OER rests on the notion that knowledge created will have no value until such time it is shared by the masses, and that the knowledge leads to progress and development. So OER is an important conduit to this. Sometimes you'll find that knowledge are created, locked up in textbooks or journals, etc., and it is not made accessible. The primary value of knowledge comes when you tend to make it accessible to people, and people use that knowledge to push the frontier. Unless knowledge created questions the existing body of knowledge and verifies it, or that knowledge leads to pushing of the frontier of the existing body of knowledge, it has no value. And so the basic logic of establishment of OER is to provide that particular leverage to those stock of knowledge that is created and locked up all over. The OER has a historical background dating back to the UNESCO Open Course Forum in 2002, at which the term OER was coined. The term has since gained significant currency around the world. The evolution of open educational resources has the potential to reduce the cost of education, provide learners access to top quality course and materials instruction. Small island states like Pacific, with its population spread amongst the hundreds of small islands, the establishment and accessibility of OER in these islands will greatly help us to build a knowledge-based society. It can contribute to amazing transformation of these agrarian societies. Leaders and the rank and file will start making decisions based on logic and reasoning, as they now have more and full and perfect information. Unlike in the other countries, Pacific and the Caribbean are very different because we are quite diverse. Our population is different islands. And establishment of OER, particularly through IT technology, helps us greatly in disseminating the information and also provide accessibility. And also providing correct, full and perfect knowledge. With full and perfect knowledge, business decisions at these micro levels will also be more sharper, and the entrepreneur will benefit, consumers will benefit, and the nation as a whole will benefit. So this is one dimension that we tend to ignore when we're talking about OER. During the World Conference on Higher Education in 2009, there was consensus on extensive awareness programs to advocate on OER, which was then ultimately adopted by UNESCO to take the project beyond. Fiji has been actively involved in the process in terms of responding to a survey on government's position on OER. The survey was conducted by the Commonwealth of Learning, which attracted 19 responses from the Asia and Pacific region. Fiji has also participated in terms of its representation by the director of the HEC and the Regional Policy Forum for Asia and the Pacific that was held in Bangkok in 2012. This meeting in Bangkok has attributed to the development of a national draft policy, as alluded to earlier on. Locally, the only known activity is that at USP's Center for Distance and Flexible Learning, where there's a repository of 74 learning packages, which with more learning content is being developed under the Creative Commons license. Ladies and gentlemen, OER can be an asset in improving the quality and effectiveness of the local educational context in the form of increasing access to and availability of high quality learning, relevant learning materials which can contribute to more productive students and educators. Beyond these obvious uses, often we kind of restrict ourselves to students and educators. We have policymakers, community leaders, the rank and file. They need to adopt a culture of reading beyond what is supplied to them by the stakeholder. I'm going to talk about that in a second. The government has been giving substantial amount of money towards the development of education in Fiji, and this is testament to government's commitment towards education. For beloved Fiji, the government is providing funds to support the operation of schools and some higher education institutions, including the 3 universities. And you would have noted the establishment of the first of the 3 this year of the Technical College. And there are more to come in that area to provide opportunities for those who are in aptitude with the trade area. The new OER is bound to aid in the development of an open culture of information sharing among school, teachers, principals, and higher education institutions, and also the other stakeholders, as I alluded to earlier on. With our existing ICT infrastructure, the use of OER will support government's key strategic policy of developing a knowledge-based society. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey towards OER usage has its own challenges. We need to remove restrictions in copying of materials by use of open licenses. Royalty payments for textbooks and other educational materials can therefore be avoided, as well as the cost and timing in securing permission to use copyright materials. Secondly, there's a possibility of adapting materials through open license that can provide a mechanism for engaging students in as active participant in education process. This is given that students learn best by doing and not by passively reading and observing. If students can be engaged in activities where they reuse and adapt learning content, they can create effective learning environments. Ladies and gentlemen, we also need to ponder on how we can inculcate a culture of reading not only by students and educators, but also by leaders at different levels in government and communities. And I term this as open reading, an open reading culture. In small developing countries like Fiji, there exists a culture of non-reading beyond the formal education system. And that is one of the major causes of stagnant societies, which I kind of see, or communities or regions or countries. We need to break this stillness. What are we to do with this endeavor? Gentlemen, we will continue to work in collaboration with you, all of you, and ensure that all the educational materials that are developed using public funds be made available under open license. While open licensing may not be required in some cases, the sharing of educational materials has significant potential in improving the quality and transparency and accessibility of education systems. As you deliberate in this forum and absorb the stock of knowledge delivered to you today by the keynote presenters, keep in mind that you are engaged in an activity that will greatly impact the future of this nation. It is my hope that the philosophies derived out of this forum will widen access to education at all levels, and all responsible agencies will vigorously promote awareness of OER. Specifically, while I note that most of the deliberations deal with supply-side issues, such as establishment of commons, widening of commons, nature of the commons, and the appropriateness of it, I do not see much deliberation centered around issues related to the demand side. I do understand we are at the early stage. All of the papers I note are dealing with the supply side dimension, the bottlenecks of supply side, the constraints. But a major problem often we allude to, often we ignore, is the demand side, and you can fix the supply side, make it perfect, make it foolproof. But if you don't have the demand side urge, then you basically won't be able to converge. What we need to do, if we want to open up, and I mean, the boundary at the moment, I can see you're talking about students and educators. If you open the boundary, as I'm suggesting, we need to profile the population, identify the demand side constraints, such as ICT bottlenecks in each of these segments of society. Villages, the Puranicoros, the district level, governments, different layers in the government. Identify the demand side bottlenecks. How do we improve the reading culture? What are the outreach programs that we want to undertake to create this culture of open reading? At the moment, it's pretty much dead. The moment you finish up your formal institutions, studies at the formal institution, open reading stops. In fact, even in informal institutions, very little open reading happens. It's all guided. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can develop an index of open reading, and every year you measure that index to help you identify how our OER usually is progressing. While you are working on the supply side, I can understand the draft policy mostly deals with supply side issues, and I haven't had my input in it, but the draft policy deals mostly on the supply side. That's fine, perfect, let's fix it. But you also need to do is, once you have got the supply side bottlenecks resolved and fixed, let's look at the demand side, and what do you do with the demand side? While you're doing the profiling, while you are also removing the bottlenecks on the demand side, can we develop a index, open reading index? So open reading index will match with the OER supply side issues. And every year you relook at that, recalibrate that index, and see how we are doing. In doing so, you'll be making a major contribution towards building a society which makes a marked progress towards decision-making or policy-making at different levels of society. What's happening at the moment is small island countries in Pacific and Caribbean too is leader-driven. And what is happening in society is that because at the lower level, people are not very educated, they are not reading, etc., decisions are made either through basically the leader-driven process or emotions. Now, if you allow for open reading culture to penetrate and get the rank and file to have the basic knowledge in different areas, you will see more informed, logical, reason-based decision-making at different levels. Amazing transformation the society can achieve, and therefore contribute towards pushing the frontier of these societies, the villages, the regions, and countries. So, in summary, I'm suggesting let's develop a culture of open reading first, while we are doing extensive work on the supply side, and which will be supported through legislation. Identify and deal with demand side bottlenecks, and widen your scope from students and educators to leaders and decision makers in different levels in government and the society. Profile the society, identify the different bottlenecks in different segments of society. We will then see a marked difference in the decision making towards the common good with the common resource. Having said that, I wish you all a very happy deliberation today, and it's my pleasure to officially declare this consultation forum today, and I wish you all success.